Hey, it's Jason Solomon and Scott O'Connell with Tactical Investment Advisors. Today, we're going to talk to you about defined benefit plans. Now, we are not CPAs. We're not lawyers. We are financial advisors. We have clients that we've helped with these plans, but don't take today's video and just jump into it, right? It's all about information that can help you make a more informed decision. Take this information, talk to your team, talk to us if you want, and you'll be a whole lot better off just by hearing this video. Everything about defined benefit plans, we'll talk about who they're for, what the benefits are, the administrative aspect of it, and finally, what are the restrictions? So Scott, why don't you take it away here and tell us about who these plans are for?
Yeah, defined benefit plans are a great way to save for retirement while also reducing your current tax bill. And they're really best suited for people over the age of 50 who can put away or save $100,000 or more. Now, why do I say that? Well, there are other retirement plans that you as a self-employed or 1099 contractor or small business owner can use, such as SEP IRAs, 401ks, and of course, there's always the traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. The difference between these plans, though, however, are the contribution limits. And the contribution limits are going to go hand in hand also with the tax deductions that you get for that current year. And the reason we say defined benefit plans are better suited for folks who are 50 and can save $100,000 or more is a couple reasons. Number one, the contribution limits for 401ks and SEP IRAs will be lower. They may be, for SEP IRAs, $69,000. For 401ks, they may only be $30,500 if you're over 50. If you're an employer, you could put a little bit more, but there is technically no contribution limit for a defined benefit plan. They're also designed and they're structured so there is a minimum amount of time that you have to fund these plans. So they're a little bit more complicated and they're a little bit more expensive to administer and put on because they have to be monitored each year and make sure the contribution limits stay inside the guardrails, so to speak. But the beautiful thing about defined benefit plans is the amount of money that you can put in. You could put in 3 times more than a 401k into these plans. And how do you get to what the contribution limits are? Well, it's based off of your age, how long you have until retirement, and what you want the benefit to be.
So let me stop you there. So the defined benefit plan will do a whole lot more from you in terms of the ability to save. So you can save a whole lot more into those. However, there's some restrictions that come along with the benefit of putting money into these plans, right?
Yeah, there are some restrictions. If you have employees, you have to contribute to the employees. There's a minimum number of years that you have to fund it. So let me briefly explain the difference in general between a defined benefit plan, which a lot of folks know as a pension, and a defined contribution plan. A defined contribution plan would be a 401k. In a defined contribution plan, the flexibility is that you can put in up to the limits each year, or you don't have to put in, or you can change the amounts, depending on your income and the needs you have for that year. With a defined benefit plan, it's a little bit more structured where you have to meet certain requirements as far as the contribution, because the point of the defined benefit plan is to give you what you need for the future, and it has to meet that certain criteria. So yes.
So a 401k plan isn't worried about the number at the end. You, of course, are. You're putting money into that 401k, but there's no rules around what's there at the end. A defined benefit plan, however, does have rules for a future valuation.
Yeah, the rules are in place to protect you as the consumer. The rules are in place to give you that benefit that you kind of promised yourself if you're the small business owner or self-employed. It's designed to fund that benefit in the future. And that's why I say it's a little bit more suited for people who are 50 years of age or older, because you have a shorter window of time with which to fund these plans. Therefore, they allow you to put a lot more money into it. So the onus is to get the benefit at the end. The onus is on you to stay within the guidelines to fund that plan, whether it's just for you or you and your employees. Whereas with a defined contribution plan, say a 401k, which is what most people know that as, a 401k, you can put in what you want when you want to, up to those certain limits. But at the end of the day, they all have the benefit of reducing taxes today, saving for retirement for the future. It's just the contribution limits are higher in some plans, and there are some restrictions with some of them. Yeah, and so let's look at an example. Let's look at a couple clients of ours, Jacob and Judy, who came to us years ago and started putting money away into a defined benefit plan. Jason, why don't you kind of walk through the numbers of how that looks?
Yeah, this is a really good example of the power. This is the positives on a defined benefit plan, where a lot of times you'll have a chiropractor who husband and wife are both involved in the business, or maybe a roofing company where the husband and wife are involved in the business, or even a financial services organization like ours. And somebody who's in the right sweet spot in terms of the amount of money they're making, how old they are, can really take advantage of some huge distributions. So Judy and Jacob are married. They're 51 and 52 years old. Jacob's making $675,000 a year, and Judy's making $450,000 a year. They don't have employees. It's just the two of them. They can save up to $493,000 of their income between a solo 401k plan and a defined benefit plan. If you're just doing a 401k, you can get nowhere near that contribution limit. And what does that do for them? Well, $500,000, if you're making more than $500,000 a year, you're in the highest tax bracket, right? You're paying north of 35%, probably close to 37%, just at a federal level. And if you're not using all of that income that's coming to you, pay yourself. And you can pay yourself through this defined benefit plan. Again, as Scott mentioned before, if you're choosing to do a defined benefit plan, this is not going to be a one-time deal. At the very minimum, it needs to be 3 years, and some professionals would argue that you have to do this for about 5 years. So if you're able to do that, you got that free cash flow, you can build a massive retirement. But again, that contribution of $493,000, let's just round it to $500,000, that's going to save you $180,000 in taxes each year that you make the contribution, right? Fast forward that 10 years. It's over $1.8 million of taxes that you didn't pay. And in theory, your money's going to be invested in your defined benefit plan, compounding growth on top of that tax savings that you otherwise would have paid to the government. Anything you want to add there, Scott?
No, one of the things to keep in mind, too, a defined benefit plan, if you Google it or talk to folks, they'll say, well, it's just a pension. That was the original intent, but you don't have to take the money, the lump sum at the end of the benefit period as a pension. You can do it as I mentioned, as a lump sum. You could take it as monthly, yearly withdrawal. So you do have options when it comes time to actually receive the benefit. So that's one of the things you need to be aware of. When people a lot of times hear pension, they hear, oh, it's just a lifetime income. It can be, but you do have some flexibility at the end of the period.
Yeah, and in fact, most of our customers do exactly what you just said, and that is they'll roll the benefit over into a traditional IRA. And that way they can distribute the funds as needed. So, yeah, part of this is building a massive retirement. Part of it is a tax strategy. So if you can save taxes now, it doesn't mean you're never going to pay taxes on that money. You're deferring it into the future. So a lot of our customers want to roll that into an IRA, and then we can manage the taxes from that point going forward. And of course, that's not usually going to happen until they finally retire. So good point, Scott. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, and again, this is best suited for folks who are not W-2 employees. W-2 employees go into their job, and there's typically a 401k or a 403b already set up for them. So all they have to do is click a few buttons to get set up and decide how much do I want to contribute, how much is the company matching. But as a small business owner or a 1099 contractor, the onus is on you to figure out where you're going to put your retirement money, how you're going to save for the future. But the beautiful thing is you actually have more options than a W-2 employee. as we mentioned, the SEP IRA.
Yeah, in most cases, for sure.
Yeah, for most cases, and the limits can be much higher, depending, again, on how much you can save and what your objective is. At the end of the day, you can go into Google and ask, hey, where's the best place to put my money? And you'll get 100 different answers, from paying down debt to buying real estate to putting it in cash to putting it in gold to Bitcoin to the stock market. But this is really designed, the defined benefit is designed, and it has some guidelines around it to really make sure that you have that benefit there when your years of working are over. The defined contribution plans, there are actually no guarantees that that money will be there when it comes time for retirement. You may contribute for years and years and years, but worst case scenario, the investments go belly up. But with the defined benefit plan, there are guidelines to make sure that that money is there. And that is important, and a big distinction between that and defined contribution plans.
Yeah, it's really important. You touched on two things here. Number one is the whole point of these plans is to make sure the money is there. Well, that's true of a 401k and that's true of a defined benefit plan. But the difference is, if you don't make enough interest in your defined benefit plan, you're going to have to fund it more than you had planned. There's rules around that. And it goes the other way too. If you make too much interest, you're not going to be able to make the contributions that you had wanted to. And also, you may lose the deduction if you make too much interest. So these plans are built for safe vehicles. Safe, predictable vehicles are what we recommend for these plans. Again, talk to your team. But if you talk to our team, it's safe, predictable solutions. The whole benefit here is that future retirement nest egg, right? Some will look at it as a nest egg. Some will look at it as a pension. It's a nest egg. It's your nest egg, and it gives you the ability to build it bigger than any other retirement solution that I know, in terms of the amount of contributions you can make and the tax benefits that you're going to get while you're alive. And in this example of this couple that we talked about, if you project forward 10 years, the couple making 5.75%, they're going to have $6.4 million in their retirement 10 years after they've been making those contributions. $6 million, just dirty math, at 6%, that's a $360,000 interest-only benefit for somebody who's in retirement. So a lot of the people who can make the contributions to these plans, we're talking chiropractors, roofing business owners, HVAC, these type of people who have that extra cash flow, they're going to be able to live just the way they are right now while they're running their business. The difference is they're not going to have to be working.
Yeah, and it's important, too, to understand that to do a defined benefit plan, we've talked about some of the benefits and some of the restrictions, and it may sound a little bit overwhelming at first, but that's why you have to have an administrative team to do that. There are companies that set up the defined benefit plans. They're monitored every year. But that's not something you have to do. That's something that your team will do, or the defined benefit company will do. That is something that they take off of your plate. They even produce the tax returns. So the complexity of this doesn't fall on your shoulders, because I think the big difference, too, when we talk about, say, a 401k plan at, maybe your old work, if you're a W-2 employee, in a defined benefit plan, is that, again, with a 401k plan, you can just click a button and it's there for you. It's already set up. It's easy to do. So it makes it easy for you to participate. To set up a defined benefit plan or any other plan as a self-employed individual or a small business owner, you have to set it up. But that doesn't mean it's complicated for you. That's why you have to have a team to do it. And I think that's one of the things that stops people a lot of times from doing it, is just they get overwhelmed with, I don't even know where to begin.
That brings up a great point. And why aren't more people doing this, or why haven't I heard of this, as a common question that we get, Scott?
Yeah, it's not something that's very common. A lot of people we talk to who are business owners never even heard of it. So there's a few reasons. One, I just mentioned, even if they've heard of it, if something becomes too complicated in the beginning, I do it a lot with stuff. I just say, well, forget it, or I'll do it another time. So that's the first.
Yeah, I mean, 5 years into this business, somebody was trying to explain a defined benefit plan to me, and just, it wasn't on my radar, right? I'd never even heard of it, and I'd been in the business for 5 years.
Yeah, that's the first thing. But the main reason that we find is that people who are small business owners and self-employed just haven't been in a position financially to contribute the amounts that we're talking about. I'm talking about a minimum of $100,000 a year for a minimum of 3 to 5 years. Well, not everyone's in that boat immediately, right? And so typically, or hopefully you get to a stage in your career and your business where that's a problem to have, which is a great problem to have, right? The sentence that comes to mind is one of our clients said, I've got all this money now that my business is finally thriving after years and years of building it and paying down debt. What do I do with it, right? And so that's the second biggest, I guess hesitation the second biggest reason of not doing a defined benefit plan. Either they haven't heard of it, feels too complicated, or they haven't been in a position to do it. And the other thing, too, is most small business owners have their own CPA. And the common phrase we get, Jason, right, is, well, if my CPA thought I should do it, then he would have recommended it. It's not always the case, would you say?
That's a great point. CPAs are some of the smartest people in just about every room you're going to go into. But even the smartest people, if they're busy trying to process 1,800 tax returns over a 2-month period, and really that's pretty generous, investment companies don't get CPAs the information they need a lot of times until March. And so now they're trying to push through those same 1,800 returns in 1 month. So they know about them in most cases. In some cases, they don't know about them. And if they don't, you probably want to reconsider your CPA. But usually they know about them. But there's a lot that goes into it. And they don't have the capacity to be able to spend the time with their customers in a lot of cases. Look, I'm not trying to pick on CPAs, but most CPAs have 1,000 customers, 700 customers. They don't have the time. It's a very difficult business to operate. It's very, very complex, detail-oriented. So they don't have the time to give you the vision that you need to maximize your situation.
Yeah, and to summarize, the defined benefit plan is designed for self-employed small business owners who can save $100,000 or more. The contribution limits are calculated each year based off of your age, how much the benefit will be in years to retirement. There are some restrictions. There are higher costs involved when it comes to implementing the defined benefit plan. There's a minimum number of years that you have to contribute, and you have to contribute to your employees. And to implement it, you have to have a team. You have to have an administrative team that can set this up, whether it's your financial advisor group. We can also guide you as well, but the team has to put that together for you and help explain some of these details.
Yeah, and if they're doing it right, I don't know if you mentioned, I don't think you mentioned this yet, we talked about it earlier. It's not necessarily investment restrictions, but you really kind of have to put the governor on yourself. You don't want to be in NVIDIA stock. You don't want to be in Apple stock. Because if it makes too much money or if it loses money, it's going to dramatically impact your contributions and your tax deductions. So defined benefit plans, they're not for everybody. They're designed for a very specific group. And if you're in that specific group, they can be very powerful, very impactful for your tax returns, very impactful for your retirement future. Again, this is not exhaustive. Don't take this information and take action. You need to talk to your legal team, your CPAs, your financial team. And if you're not comfortable with them or if they're not bringing these ideas to the table for you, then give us a call. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel or give us a call with the link below.